Stephen Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Stephen Roberts, explain to me how an rich, white, elitist New York billionaire can capture the hearts of working-class rural Americans.
Well, when you put it that way, it's a very difficult question to answer, but there are at least four possibilities. One is he clearly tapped into a vein of economic anxiety. Whites without a college degree voted 39% margin for Trump, but white men 49%. And this group showed high levels of economic anxiety. These are the folks who don't have the education to take advantage of the new jobs being created in the modern economy. That's one. I think, secondly, there's a lot of social and cultural upheaval in this country. You look at issues like same-sex marriage, an awful lot of traditional people who saw those photos of gay couples kissing and holding hands and getting married on courthouse steps really didn't like that because it just upset a lot of the norms and expectations they grew up with. Third, I think you have to be honest and say there are elements of xenophobia and racism here. I've written 2 books about the history of immigration in this country, and I can tell you that periodically figures like Donald Trump have always arisen to object to the Irish, the Italians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Jews. This year it was that resentment and that fear was directed at Muslims and Hispanics. And the fourth factor is that Hillary Clinton was such a weak candidate. Her negatives were sky high. She never was able to generate much enthusiasm, particularly among African Americans who voted in lower levels than they had in the past. And the letter that the FBI director wrote, James Comey, 10 days ago, had an enormous effect, I'm convinced, on this campaign. He had no justification for doing it, as he eventually admitted that there was no evidence that she had committed any more wrongdoing, and he violated all of the Justice Department norms and traditions by injecting himself into the campaign for precisely the reason that we saw last night. It changed the whole nature of this campaign, so there are a lot of reasons.
Stephen Roberts, the polls got it wrong, and we'll be talking about that for the next coming weeks and months and years about how they got it wrong, and clearly they underestimated the energy of the Trump voter. And I don't know if you have this answer, but millennials, Bernie Sanders people, it seems like they voted third party or didn't vote, but they did not come home to Hillary Clinton.
Well, of course, some did, but this was always a problem. And, when you look back, it's easy now in hindsight to say that the Sanders vote was a real warning bell about Clinton's weaknesses. Sanders generated far more excitement than Clinton did, even though she won the primaries, there was just a huge intensity gap there, and a lot of those millennials, you're right. Some reluctantly backed Clinton, but some did not. So there are many factors here that go into trying to explain what happened. But that certainly is one of them.
You also, Stephen Roberts, this wasn't just Donald Trump winning. This was a beatdown, right? I mean, this had coattails both in the Senate and the House. Republicans now own everything.
That's true. And I think even Republicans, most of them are surprised at the sweep. Although if you look at the popular vote, I heard one report this morning that she might even be inching ahead in the popular vote. But that and $2 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I mean, or $5 at Starbucks. But the fact is that you got to remember something else, which is that Hillary Clinton was running against history. We are a very restless country. It's time for a change is almost always the most resonant slogan in our politics. And if you look at history, what Clinton was trying to do, keep the White House in the hands of the same party for a third term, has almost never happened. And since the end of the Roosevelt-Truman administration, 7 different candidates have tried to do it before Trump. Only one, George Bush 41, succeeded, and he only served 1 term. So she was running against a very deep-seated impulse in the American tradition, in the American culture, that we like to change. We like something new. We like something fresh. That's America.
He did it his own way. He didn't have any surrogates. He had virtually no party support. He had no party help, very little party money. The upper echelon of the party repudiated him, never campaigned with him, never went out and talked him up. I mean, this is as big of an upset as I think we've ever seen. Is it not, Stephen Roberts?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd add one other benchmark to your litany there, McGraw, which was newspaper endorsements. Newspapers that had not endorsed Democrats for over 100 years endorsed Hillary Clinton. There was only a handful of newspapers who endorsed Donald Trump, and the only one of any size in Las Vegas was owned by one of Trump's big contributors, Sheldon Adelson. And yet that's just one more example of how the intellectual establishment was so out of tune with the way voters were voting. But I think you do also have to look at Hillary Clinton's weakness as a candidate to help explain this. Her negatives sky high. The lingering problem that Sanders uncovered and exploited, that people simply don't trust her, and that's why the Comey letter was so damaging, because it highlighted and reminded people of what they don't like about Hillary and what they don't like about her husband Bill. And I think there was just an enormous amount of Clinton fatigue during the end of the campaign when Trump said, do you really want to go through this again? Do you really want more of the Clinton melodrama? I think it was a very effective argument, because a lot of voters said, no, that's the last thing I want.
Stephen Roberts, great insight. ABC News political analyst. Thanks for getting up early with us this morning.
Okay, pal.
You got it. 625, Big 550 KTRS. That's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
That right there, NPR, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. That right there, that 7 minutes was as good as you're going to get breaking down.
That explanation, 100% on.
Yeah, no. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, I think it's brilliant insights.
Yeah.
And helps explain.
Because I think people are waking up this morning saying, what happened? How did this happen?
I even think Trump supporters don't know how it happened. There were people who voted for Donald Trump that I know that knew he was going to lose. And are waking up this morning still scratching their head saying, I can't believe he won. I think it's a little bit of Brexit, where it's maybe not, I didn't want him to win. I voted for him. I was hoping he'd win, but I didn't think he'd win. But he did. I mean, this is an upset of epic proportions, and I don't want to sort of blow it out of proportion. But when the Las Vegas newspaper and the National Enquirer endorsed Trump, and the New York Observer, owned by his son-in-law, chose not to endorse a candidate, and he wins, this is an upset of epic proportions.
It's the epitome of against all odds.
E&B Granite, ladies and gentlemen, looking for some